guys, how y'all doing today? It is February the 15th, 2024. I hope everybody had a great Valentine's Day yesterday. Today I'm going to talk about what I was talking about yesterday in the video where I talked about the symptoms that I missed leading up to my diagnosis. And in yesterday's video I talked about how I've been watching a video yesterday morning, and there was a rock star that was talking about how when he would drink and use drugs that he had an alter ego. And like I said, I thought that was really interesting when he said that, because it really struck home with me. I feel like that's exactly what I was doing when I was drinking as well, as I was trying to become someone else. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hop into today's video. So I've talked about this previously, and I've gone into it a bit, especially in the video that I did with my mom. You know, when I was younger, I grew up in a really small town. My dad was in the military. We bounced around a good bit when I was really young. And then we moved to a small town up in North Carolina. I lived there until I was a teenager, and then we moved here, a very young teenager, and then we moved here. I've lived here ever since. But the town that I lived at before was a lot smaller than the town I live in now. And I'd made a lot of friends there. It was just a very small farming community, a lot different than where I live at currently. But what ended up happening is we moved from there, we moved where we're at now, and when we came to where we're at, I pretty much had to start over from scratch. I didn't know anybody when we moved here, and we moved out into a very rural area as well, so it was kind of hard to hang out with anybody or really meet anybody other than school. So especially like during the summer times, it was really tough to meet people, and I was rather lonely, and I just wasn't adjusted to meeting new people. It's just something I never had to really deal with. A little bit, but not too much. It was a really big change for me when we moved. And you know, I had a lot of friends when we moved up before, then we come to where we're at now, and I just didn't have any friends. And my personality, like I've said previously, I've always been kind of a quiet, reserved person. I've never been a really outgoing individual, pretty reserved. And I found it really hard to make friends when we first moved. And like I said, I was in my early teenage years, and it didn't take me long to kind of get to where I was hanging around with the folks that were kind of playing around with things. And it was an opportunity for me to make friends. And what ended up happening is, like I've said in the past, is start experimenting with pot. And not much longer after that, I started messing around with alcohol. Now, I had tried alcohol before, but never to the extent, you know, to where I'd gotten like really, really drunk until I was in my teenage years. But once, I remember the first time that I ever had alcohol, and I was drinking Mad Dog 2020. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was hanging out with a group of my friends. We had gotten a couple bottles of Mad Dog, the real big bottles of it, and we were drinking it. And I'll never forget that warm, fuzzy feeling that I got all over my body. I just got really talkative, really loose, and I knew right then, I really like the way this makes me feel, like a lot. And after that, it started progressing to where I would get drunk here and there, usually on the weekends. I knew this guy here in town. Of course, I was underage, but there was a bootlegger that sold alcohol. I think it was like $1 a can that you could buy beer from him. Especially where we live at on Sundays, they don't sell alcohol at all. At least they used to not sell alcohol. You still can't buy liquor unless you go into a restaurant here. And actually, I just saw South Carolina's about to change the rules now, and you can buy liquor on Sunday is what's about to happen here. But our liquor laws here are Monday through Saturday. You can buy liquor, and it's from like 10 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. Liquor stores have to be closed, but you can buy beer any day of the week, all day long. But they're about to change that. But like I said, I would go to the bootleg guy's house on the weekends, and I think it was like $1 beer, and I would buy the Schlitz Bull, the malt liquor in the cans. That's basically what he sold, and he sold some other like pint bottles of liquor and stuff like that, which I never really messed around with. But I started buying Schlitz malt liquor and drinking it. I would go out on the weekends, have some drinks, and guess what? I started making friends. Started going to parties, and I just noticed that when I would drink, that my personality would completely change. I became this other individual. I was a totally different person. And that's what really, that was the allure for me for the alcohol more than anything else, because it really gave me an opportunity to open up, to talk to people, not to feel so uncomfortable when I was speaking with people. It just really made me feel comfortable, just kind of just letting loose and just hanging out with people. And as time progressed and I kept doing that, well, I started to be kind of known as the guy that, that drank. Everybody else was using pot, and I used it too, but I would drink, and I still wasn't drinking all the time. It was just on the weekends or whatever I would start drinking. Well, then I got into my 20s and was working in the restaurant industry, and like I said, I got married rather young. I got married when I was 21 years old, or 22, one or the other. I can't remember exactly how old I was. I was either 21 or 22, but we got married and moved in together, and after that happened, I started drinking a little bit more. And the neighborhood that we lived in, there were a lot of people in the neighborhood that drank as well. And a lot of these people I had known since I had moved to the town that I live in now. But anyway, so started hanging out with those guys, and we would, get to drinking, especially on the weekends. We would drink. And as time progressed, doing that more and more, I started becoming known as the guy that was kind of crazy. And I started getting this label for myself. People knew me, myself and my brother. My brother was in the military, and then he moved back to the town that we live in. And when he moved back, the two of us started hanging out a lot more. My brother was younger. He wasn't married. He actually came and started. He moved back to our town to go to college to pursue his nursing degree after he got out of the military, and actually took a job working for me at my restaurant. And that's where things started to go south and things started to get bad. My brother and I would start hanging out all the time, especially after work. If we worked like a Friday or Saturday night, we would get off and then we would go drink. We'd go to the local bars or whatever and hang out. And it started to create a problem. People started to realize my brother and I were both kind of crazy. And I know I never said my last name, but our last name, and I'm still not going to say it, but people would call us the Brothers, our last name Brothers, and it was the crazy you-know-what brothers. And the two of us were just rambunctious and wild, and we did a lot of stupid things, and we got this name for ourselves as being these really crazy guys. Well, I really started pursuing that other person, and started to evolve into this other individual that I was never that person. But I started to evolve into that person and started really becoming this character that I was really trying to portray. And I was playing a role, and I had to be intoxicated in order to do so. So I would continue to drink, and when I drank, I would get crazy and say really ridiculous things to people, and just act stupid and do dumb things. For instance, I might be walking into a bar, and there might be a sign in front of the bar sitting there, and I would just smack it on the ground or something like that. Just do stupid, immature things. But I thought that I was being funny, and looking back on it now, of course, hindsight's 2020. I look like an idiot, but I didn't think I was then. Of course, I was immature. I wasn't thinking properly, and I was under the influence of alcohol. Getting into my 30s is when I really started to ramp up and become that other person, and I really did evolve into this other individual, and just totally changed who I was. I became that alter ego. I've got to be known as being, a really blunt person. I would say really mean things to people sometimes, and I know that I don't come off that way here through the videos, and I'm not that way anymore. I've gone back to being exactly who I really am. So I really hope that you guys don't judge me for some of the stuff I'm going to talk about today, because I really wasn't a good person. I just did a lot of horrible things. I was constantly drunk. I would call people up. I would get to drinking, especially on my days off. I would sit around the house and drink all day. And usually it would start off, I'd wake up in the morning and have a beer or two or whatever it was. And then I'd get out and maybe do some yard work or something like that. But I would drink the whole time that I did it. And then towards the afternoon, I'd finish up, take a shower, and continue to really start drinking at that point. And that's when I really moved into the hard liquor. If I had something to do that day. I didn't start off in the morning. If I really had a lot of hard work to do that day, I wouldn't start off the morning drinking liquor. I would start off in the morning with beer. I know that's not good, but it's just what I did. And like I said, I'd get into it later in the afternoon after I finished all my stuff for the day, and then I would really start ramping up my drinking and start making my really big liquor drinks. And that's when the stuff would really start to hit the fan. I would start calling people. Somebody might have upset me a week before or a month before or a year before or whatever it was, and I would just call people out of the blue and just give them a bunch of crap about whatever had happened, and I would just throw people off because they didn't know what was going on. Of course I was slurring my words. People would say, "Man, are you drunk or something, man, because you're slurring?" And of course I would lie and say, "No, I'm not drunk," but I really was. Another thing too that I used to do as well, as I've talked about this, is I used to do a lot of whitewater kayaking, and some of the stuff that I did was really dangerous and just was not smart, especially being on the water in a kayak, going over class 5 whitewater and being intoxicated at that. And I would drink in order to get enough nerve to do some of the stuff that I did. I'd get up, paddle down these rivers, and one of the rivers I've talked about I used to paddle down all the time is the Chattooga River. And on Section 4 of the Chattooga River, if any of you guys have ever gone there and whitewater rafted down that river, it's a very popular river for that. They take groups of people down that. But the first 90% of the river is pretty laid back. There's some rapids going down through there, but it's not too bad. But I would paddle down that section of the river until we got to what's called the Five Falls, and that's all class 4, class 5 whitewater down in there. And it's about a half a mile stretch of really, really serious, dangerous, undercut rocks, big whitewater, dangerous stuff. And I would drink all the way down the river. I was always the guy that had a little cooler in the back of my kayak, and I'd pull over on the side of the river, grab a beer out, stick it in my life jacket, and I'm always the guy that's paddling down the river, drinking beer, and the people would be like, "Dude, what are you doing, man? That's so dangerous." And I'd be like, "Oh man, it's okay, it's okay." We'd get down into the Five Falls area, and then I'd really start, pounding beers, because that's pretty sketchy down in there and really scary, especially if the water was really high. And I would have to slam a couple beers to get the nerve up to go down that stuff. And there were some times where I really should not have been paddling down through there, because I had a really heavy buzz going on, and it just wasn't smart. I remember this one time we went paddling, and there was a guy that used to paddle with us, and he was an older gentleman. I was in my 30s this time. He was probably in his late 50s or early 60s. And I remember we had gone down a section of the river, and he kept rolling over in his kayak and had to keep coming out, what they call swimming. It's where you have to pop your skirt and swim out of your boat because you can't roll back up. You have to do what's called an Eskimo roll to roll back up if you flip over. And he kept flipping over, kept bombing out of his boat and swimming. And we got to the bottom of one of the rapids, and he had swam like 3 times to this rapid, and he was just exhausted. And I finally went over to him and I said, "Hey man, you got to stop. You can't go any further with us. this, you're gonna end up getting hurt really bad. And when I pulled up beside him, he had a bottle of pills that he was shaking into his hand that he was chasing with a beer. And I remember thinking to myself, man, that guy is in really bad shape. Not knowing that later on down the road that I was gonna be even worse than that gentleman was with my alcoholism. Now, I wasn't taking pills and all that stuff at the same time. I just drank pretty much, but I just remember judging him and thinking that this guy right here, man, he's in such a bad position and in such a bad place in his life, and I'll never end up like that. And then, years later, I end up even in a worse spot than that guy did. So that goes to show you, you think that you're invincible to it, and you end up not being. But anyway, like I said, I used it in order to go kayaking and do crazy things. I would use it to go out and party and become a whole different person in order to be the life of the party. And I've talked about this as well, that people would say, there he is, he's got the crazy eyes, or I saw you out last night, you had the crazy eyes going on. And there was this whole thing where people said that my brother and I both would get the crazy eyes. I still to this day don't know what that means. I don't know what we looked like. I mean, I was always intoxicated, so there's just no telling. But people would say that we had the crazy eyes, and we were always doing really stupid stuff. We would go out to the bar, and I've never been the type of person I've never been a really violent person. I've never been a very confrontational person, but when I would get to drinking, I would become that, and I would get very confrontational with people, and if somebody bumped into me at the bar, I'd turn around, hey man, why don't you watch where you're going, or, just stupid things like that. And, that just wasn't my personality. I've always been the type of person, if somebody was to bump into me, I'd say, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, or whatever. And instead, I had this whole different persona about myself where I was becoming very confrontational with people, and that just wasn't me. And like I said, I was trying to portray somebody that I really wasn't. And the thing about it is that I had this idea in my head that if I became this other individual, that people were going to like me more, one, and two, that people weren't going to give me a hard time. I thought that if I acted big and tough and walked around with my chest poked out all the time, that people were going to avoid me and stay away, and that wasn't necessarily the case. I think that by myself acting in that manner, that I really just put a big red flag on, or a big sticker on my forehead that said, hey, somebody mess with me, please, because I'm asking for it, and I really was. There's so many situations in my life that I can think back on where if it hadn't been for the alcohol, I wouldn't have done the stupid things that I'd done. I wouldn't have got myself into a bunch of the trouble that I got myself into. I used to ride down the road, especially if I wasn't driving and I was riding with somebody else and I was drinking. I would scream out the window at people all the time and scare them. Just being ridiculous, just dumb things, just stupid stuff that I never would have done if I was sober. And looking back on it now, it's pretty embarrassing, some of the stuff I did, and especially the people that I hurt coming up through the years, because I did. I pushed all my friends away. A lot of my friends that I had too were also drinkers and drug users, and a lot of them aren't even here anymore. A lot of my friends have passed and are gone now. This one day I was at work with a friend of mine. It was actually my kitchen manager at the time. We had worked together at the same restaurant for 14 years, and we were just talking one day, and we were having a conversation because one of the employees had just passed away, and that had happened over the years. We had lost a lot of people, and it usually was due to either drugs or alcohol. And one day we just sat down and we got a piece of paper and we started writing down all the names. We got to 58 people that worked there that passed away that we knew over the years. 58 people. That's a lot of people. And the majority of those people died from drugs or alcohol. And I mean, there's so many cases I can think of. There's this one girl that used to work for me that was addicted to pain medication, and she had taken a fentanyl patch and was, I guess, licking it, and had gotten in a bathtub, and things didn't turn out too well for her after that. I had a guy that used to work for me that overdosed on heroin. I mean, people dying from alcohol-related problems. I had a friend of mine that worked with me that died from stomach cancer because of alcohol. Just so many different things, and people that passed away. All the warnings were there for me all that time, and I decided to look past them and look over them and think that I was invincible and that wasn't ever going to happen to me. And the thing is, is that we always sit around thinking, oh, this is never going to happen to me until it does happen to you. And, that's the way it goes for everything. We never think that it's going to happen to us. It's the next guy that's going to happen to. It's not going to happen to me. I'm better than that. I'm smarter than that. But I can promise you it can happen to any of us. But back to my alter ego. Like I said, I just portrayed this whole other person for so long and really embarrassed myself a lot. None of my neighbors towards the end, when we lived in our old neighborhood, liked me anymore. None of them really spoke to me that often because I had shown my you-know-what so many times. I could think of so many instances where I just went and just really just acted a fool. We would have like a big party for like 4th of July and January the 1st every single year in our neighborhood, and we would set off fireworks and stuff like that. I remember one time we went and I was completely wasted, set off a bunch of fireworks, and then the firework thing is one of those boxes where it's got all the fireworks that shoot out really fast. There's like 100 of them, those little box of rockets. Well, I set one of those up and ended up falling over and ended up shooting the fireworks at everybody that were sitting in their chairs in one of the front lawns of somebody's house. Fireworks are going all over the place. There were kids out there. I mean, it was just, and I didn't mean to do it, but if I hadn't been intoxicated, it probably wouldn't have ever happened. I was out there playing around with fireworks and I was drunk. But like I said, I just had this whole different person that I become. I had this next door neighbor that used to live next door to us, and the lady got upset one night because my dog was barking, and I went over there and just ripped her a new one because she got an attitude with me. I never even spoke to them again after that because of that situation. And that's pretty awkward when you have to drive by your neighbor's house every single day, and you used to wave to each other and now you don't wave anymore, and that went on for years. But like I said, I just was a totally different person back then, and it really does change us. I've talked to so many people that alcohol has completely changes their personality. They became a whole different person, a person they weren't proud of. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of us that drink, have depression issues, have anxiety problems, especially around big groups of people. And we don't feel comfortable in our own skin a lot of times, and we're uncomfortable talking to people, and the alcohol really opened that door up to allow us to have conversations with people that we normally wouldn't have. And I know that every single aspect of my life was consumed with alcohol, and if there wasn't alcohol involved, I wasn't going, because I knew I wasn't going to feel comfortable where I was at. But this video has gone on for almost 24 minutes now, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out. But like I said, I became a totally different person when I drank, and I'm back to being the person that I was now. And I think a lot of us, after we quit drinking, it's kind of hard for us to settle back into that old self that we are, because alcohol really does help sometimes to open up those doors to lubricate those social interactions for us. And when we stop, we don't have that vice anymore to help us through those uneasy situations and talking to people that we don't know and striking up a conversation with somebody at a bar that you've never even met. And I know that was something that made me feel really good, because I could talk to anybody. And it's taken me a bunch of time now since I quit drinking in order for me to be that person again. And I'm not that person that was a jerk and was that whole different person. I'm back to being my old self, but it's taken me quite some time in order to get back to feeling comfortable talking to people when I'm not intoxicated anymore. That was a struggle, but it does get easier, and I promise you that at some point, you will get more comfortable in those situations. It just takes time, especially if you've been drinking as long as I did and as much as I did, and involved alcohol in every single little aspect of your life. It's a part of your life. It's like putting on a shirt every single day. I mean, you're not going to go anywhere without a shirt on, or your shoes, or your pants. Alcohol was like that for me. It was part of my outfit. I couldn't leave the house without it. I had to have it. And I didn't want to go back to being that person that I really was. I just didn't feel comfortable with him. But now that I've stopped drinking, I realized that all that was it was a mask. It was a costume that I put on every single day, and I was pretending to be somebody else, and that wasn't me. And I've spent so many years pretending to be this other guy, and wasted so many good years, caused so many problems to so many people, lost so many friends, caused problems with my family, especially my wife. She would see it, and she saw what kind of a person I was back then, and she sees who I've become now, and I'm back to being my normal self again. And I think there's sometimes even she gets confused with who I am now, because for so long I was this totally different person. I was always bouncing off the walls and all over the place, just so full of energy. Like I said, alcohol really gave me a lot of energy, and now I'm not that guy anymore, and my liver disease does have a lot of effect on my energy levels, but I'm not drinking anymore, so I'm not just full of energy and all over the place and in this super good mood. And that's another thing too, real quick, that I want to touch on real fast before I get off of here, is that I'm sure a lot of you have had experience with this, but I was just talking to my wife about this last night, is that alcohol used to really boost my mood. It would really get me in this great mood, and then it didn't. It was like this, it was like a graph that kind of went up. As I drank, I got to this point where I plateaued, and then I just dived off the deep end right after that. I would get to this point where I was in the best mood ever. I couldn't shut up. I kept running my mouth, would just talk, and then things just started to decline. And then it was straight downhill after that. And then I would get into a really bad mood. I was very confrontational, very short and snappy, didn't want to talk to anybody. That's when I would start causing fights with people. I would just up and leave, or whatever it would be, or I would, hang up the phone on somebody. And that happened all the time. And that was the problem with the alcohol with me, because I was always chasing that point, that very top of the mountain. But as soon as I got there, I was only there for just a fraction of the time. So as soon as I got to that point, that little fraction of time, then it was a straight dive off the deep end every single time. And I don't understand why I never quite, wrap my head around the fact that I was wasting all my time and energy trying to get to this one little place where I was happy for just a few minutes, and then the rest of my day was crap. I'd wake up in the morning hungover, drink all day to get to that one point that lasted maybe an hour, and then the rest of the day I spent feeling like trash, throwing up, passed out, blacked out, hungover again. Now, I know that you guys know about, day drinking, passing out at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then waking up back at like 7 o'clock in the evening, and you're like, what in the world's going on? You're so discombobulated, you don't know what's happening, you don't know what time of the day it is, and man, that would put me in the worst mood in the world anytime that happened to me. But anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here. I'd like to hear in the comment section, what was your alter ego? Who did you become when you drank? Did you become a mean person? Did you become a nice person? Did you open up more when you drank? Is that why you drank, was to become an alter ego? I'd like to hear your guys' stories, and who you became when you drank, and who you are now. How is stopping alcohol, if you've quit, how has that changed your personality? Have you gone back to being the old you again? Or are you still kind of that person that you were when you drank? I'd like to hear your guys' stories. I'm really interested to hear it. If I was, I know I'm not the only one that became that type of person, but I just would like to hear how many of you became, this person or that person. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and hop off of here. If you haven't subscribed to the channel and you've been watching the videos, please subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Every time you guys subscribe, it really helps get the videos out there to more and more people. I just started this channel, like I said, 3 months ago, and it's grown to almost 3,300 subscribers as of today. And it's just steadily growing. Every day this channel just grows and grows and grows. And that means that these videos are getting out to more and more people. I hear more and more people telling me that the video just popped up on their feed. They weren't looking for that type of video. It just came up and they decided to watch it. And so many people have told me that they watched the video and they decided that since they've watched my videos, they've decided to stop drinking. And that really, really makes me feel good. That's the whole purpose of these videos, is to help others not drink, help people get on the right path, and also help those know that they're not alone, that there's a lot of us out there that are suffering through this. And especially those of you that are out there that are sick right now, you're not alone. There's a lot of us that have this problem, that have these health issues, and I want others to feel that they're not alone, that we're all in this together. And I'm really trying to build a community of people together so that we can all share and talk and make each other feel better about this disease. So with that said, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and hop out of here. I hope y'all had a great day today, and until tomorrow's video, I'll see y'all then. Bye bye.